Okay. Hello everyone. I don't necessarily expect anybody to hop on live this morning, but I wasn't able to pre-record our week 4 introduction video yesterday the way I usually do, so I decided instead of, because I have a busy day today, instead of trying to record and edit and upload, that I would just do live, and if anybody is available, they can hop on. If not, that's not a huge deal. We'll just get this posted to the channel. So, hello, my name is Alyssa Nalani from alyssanalani.com, and this is week 4 of James in our season 2 series in Club 119. And I'm just going to go over our scripture for the week. Last week we started chapter 2 in James, and this week we are continuing the chapter with verses 14 through 26. So we're just going to be finishing out the chapter for the week, and then next week we'll do all of chapter 3, and then the following week all of chapter 4, and then the last 2 weeks we will split up the final chapter, which is chapter 5. So I'm going to go ahead and read verses 14 through 26. I'm reading out of the New King James Version, and it says, "What does it profit, my brethren, if someone says he has faith, but does not have works? Can faith save him? If a brother or sister is naked and destitute of daily food, and one of you says to them, 'Depart in peace, be warmed and filled,' but you do not give them the things which are needed for the body, what does it profit? Thus also faith by itself, if it does not have works, is dead. But someone will say, 'You have faith and I have works. Show me your faith without your works, and I will show you my faith by my works. You believe that there is one God. You do well. Even the demons believe and tremble. But do you want to know, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? Was not Abraham our father justified by works when he offered Isaac his son on the altar? Do you see that faith was working together with his works, and by works faith was made perfect? And the scripture was fulfilled, which says, Abraham believed God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness, and he was called the friend of God. You see then that a man is justified by works and not by faith only. Likewise, was not Rahab the harlot also justified by works when she received the messengers and sent them out another way? For as the body without the spirit is dead, so faith without works is dead also." So those were verses 14 through 26. This is talking all about faith and works and how the two of them have to work together in order for faith to be proven, really. And I'm just going to read my 5 takeaways really quick. I've got my journal here. Okay, so my 5 takeaways, and again, as you know by now, that the takeaways are just your observations of the text so far after having read it a couple of times over. You haven't studied it or anything yet, and you're just observing. This is your first reaction to the text, first or second reaction to the text. So the first thing I wrote down was, number 1, saying that I believe in Jesus isn't enough. I have to prove it with my life or my behavior. Number 2, my faith is useless unless it's an active part in my life. Number 3, if all I do is simply believe in Jesus, then I'm doing as much as the devils are doing. So in the verse 19, it says, "You believe that there is one God. You do well." In other words, good job. That's a good thing that you believe in God. However, even the demons believe and tremble. We know this, it reminded me of the story in the Gospels. I can't remember which book it is, but when Jesus encountered the demons on the beach, he was with his disciples, and it's found in 2 Gospels, can't remember which ones they are. I want to say Luke and maybe Mark or Matthew. Anyway, and encountered the demon-possessed men, and they addressed him and addressed him as the Son of God. They knew who he was. The demons absolutely know who Jesus is. Satan absolutely knows who God is, obviously, because they're the ones who are the antagonists in this great story, this battle between good and evil. And so they obviously believe that God exists. The problem for them is they are at war with God. They are against God. So just believing that God exists isn't enough, because even the devils do that at the very least. The 4th thing I wrote down was, my works justify me in the sight of God. And when I was studying for, or putting together the study for this, and I'm not going to elaborate too much because I'm not well versed off the top of my head. But one of the things that I found is that people tend to think that Paul and James don't agree with each other because Paul talks a lot about grace, and it's not our works that save us. And Paul is absolutely right. But one of the things that we have to remember, if this is something that you come across or that you might grapple with, one of the things you have to remember is that Paul and James were talking to 2 completely different audiences. James was talking to people who were already in a faith lifestyle. These were Jews who were adopting Christianity. So they already believed in God. That wasn't the issue. Their issue was, you have to live out your life proving that you believe in God. Your faith has to be an active faith. That's why he gives the examples of Abraham and Rahab later on in the chapter. Paul was talking to people who were not a part of the original Jewish faith practice. They would have been heathens who were converting to belief in Jesus. And so his approach was that the works, just doing good, isn't what's going to save you. It is a belief in Jesus first, accepting that gift of salvation first. And when you actually study both of them out, they actually are in harmony with each other. It just depends on where you're coming from and what you need to hear based on your behavior. I hope that makes sense. Again, I can't really go into it because I can't spit off scriptures very well in that vein of thought. But if you ever come across that or grapple with that, James and Paul are very much in harmony with each other when it comes to how this all works out. And the word justification really just means, because I looked it up before I got on, because I wanted to make sure I had this right, but justification really just means to prove right, to prove that, in fact, let me pull it up on my phone right now just to make sure I got my words right. Oh, we have a few people on. Hello, hello. Hello, hello. Justification is not a scary word. It's not a difficult concept. Okay, so justify, to show or prove to be right or reasonable. To show or prove to be right or reasonable. Theologically, it means declared or made righteous in the sight of God. So what that means is that when it comes to faith and works, I've got something on my pants. Anyway, when it comes to faith and works, like the verse says, it's good to believe in God. Good, step 1, right? But the next thing that you have to do is prove that you believe in God by how you live your life. And it's that action, it's that behavior that justifies us. It's not about earning favor with God. It's not about proving that we are better than somebody else or making sure that we've got all our boxes checked, but a consistent desire and a consistent improving and a consistent maturing in the faith is what justifies us. So to prove, how did it say? Goodness, guys, it's early in the morning. I'm having a hard time keeping thoughts in my head. To prove to be right or reasonable, that's justify or justification. Another word is to, be a good reason for. What proves that you are who you say you are? I lost my little place here. Anyway, so that's what justify means. It's not a scary or complex idea. It's really quite simple. Okay, I'm really used to, if I kind of get off on a trail, to be able to stop and edit, and this is live, I can't do that, so bear with me. Okay, the fifth thing that I wrote down was the ways in which Abraham and Rahab responded to the situations in their life proved their faith in God. So those verses are, excuse me, those verses are, starting with verse 20 through about 25. So it says, basically 20 says, do you want proof, you foolish man, O foolish man, that faith without works is dead? And then he gives two examples. Abraham, this is something that, excuse me guys, I'm so sorry. Again, I would have edited this out. Oh yes, so he gives the example of Abraham. Abraham would have been somebody that they would have been familiar with. He's the father of the nation. God said that I will make you a father of a great nation. So they would have been familiar with him. And he believed in God, and it was accounted to him for righteousness. One of the biggest tests in Abraham's story that the Israelites would have known, the Jews would have known, was God's request of Abraham, his command of Abraham to sacrifice his son Isaac. And if you remember, Isaac was the promised son that Abraham and his wife Sarah had been waiting for years. They were barren she was barren, and they had no children for years, up until their old age. And finally, they had a son named Isaac, and he was the promised son. He was the son through which God was going to keep his promise that he had made way back in Abraham's younger days. He had promised Abraham, I'm going to make you the father of a great nation. Your nation, your descendants are going to be so numerous, they will be like the sands of the sea. They will be, they wouldn't be able to be numbered. And God makes this promise to Abraham. Abraham is faithful. He has a few episodes, but he's faithful. And the son doesn't come, the son doesn't come, the son doesn't come. They do try to take matters into their own hands in trying to produce an heir, and that's a story for another time. But finally, Isaac comes, and he's the promised son, and all of a sudden God is like, I need you to go to this mountain, take your son with you, and I want you to sacrifice him to me. And here's the thing. Human sacrifice was a pagan ritual. Abraham was surrounded by pagans. He would have been extremely familiar with these types of rituals. And here is God who, good morning, here is God asking him to do this pagan thing and sacrifice his son, which is so counterintuitive to him. And yet he had faith enough to trust God. And that's a huge thing. That's what James is talking about. He's like, hey, listen, Abraham was obedient, and it was counted to him for righteousness. And that righteousness is what justifies us. So back to Abraham before I keep going. So Abraham followed the call as his only son. Well, it wasn't his only son. He had another son by another woman. Anyway, story for another day. But it was his promised son, the one who was going to be the fulfillment of the promise that God made to him. And so he goes to Mount Moriah with his son Isaac, and he builds an altar. Good morning. He builds an altar, and he's ready to sacrifice his son. And just as he's ready to take that knife and do the most horrific thing that he's ever done in his life, God stops him, and he provides a ram for a sacrifice. And then he goes into the example. James goes into the example, and I'm kind of brushing over this because I'm going to make a point, but he goes into the next example with Rahab. And for those of you who don't know Rahab's story, it's amazing. It's found in Joshua. Abraham's found in Genesis. Rahab's found in Joshua. And Rahab was, good morning, Rahab was a woman in Jericho. So Joshua had just taken over Moses' position as the leader of the children of Israel, and they're going to go and take possession of the land that God had promised the Israelites, the land flowing with milk and honey, right? And so they need to overthrow the city of Jericho. And the spies find, I'm trying to remember the sequence of events. It's been a while. He sends spies into Jericho. These spies meet up with a woman named Rahab. Good morning. Meet up with Rahab. Thank you. I'm trying not to lose my train of thought. I'm sorry. They meet up with Rahab. She's a prostitute in Jericho. And she hides them from the authorities who are looking for people who shouldn't be in the city, right? And she lies to the authorities, hides them in her home, and asks the spies, hey, I know that you serve the one true God. I know that you serve the one true God. I just got chills. There's this pagan woman in a pagan city in an unbelieving country who says, I know that you serve the one true God. When it's time, good morning, when it's time, I want you to save me and my family. We'll be here waiting. And the spies agreed, and she kept them safe. And when the walls of Jericho fell and the city was being destroyed, they went back and they got Rahab and her family. And I got chills again. Amazing story when you think about it. These people, the people of Canaan, the people of Jericho, would have heard about what had happened to the Egyptians back when the Israelites escaped slavery from Egypt. They would have heard about the crossing of the Red Sea. They would have heard what was going on. And now these people are coming to their turf thinking that they're going to do something. Rahab would have heard about these Israelites. So by the time the spies hit her home and came to her home, and remember, she's a prostitute. She's the least of the least. She's at the bottom of the barrel. She said, I heard about your God, and I believe you guys are right. When it's time, save me and my family. That takes faith. And again, James is writing about her, which is so incredible. He's writing about her, the lowest of the low, in a pagan society, this woman of faith who knew enough to believe that God was who he said he was, and was able to put that faith into action, risk her life, lying to the authorities, risking her life, and putting her faith into action. This is what James is talking about. And so, and the really great thing about Rahab is she ends up in the genealogy of Jesus. She's part of Jesus' family, which is amazing. I believe that's correct. Actually, now that I think about it, I'm going to double check myself just to make sure I'm right. We're going to take a little bit of a trip here, guys. Just a little bit of a trip. I got to fact check myself. Whenever you are listening to somebody teach or talk about the Bible, always make sure that you fact check. I know that Ruth is a part of the genealogy of Christ. There are two genealogies. There's one in Matthew chapter 1, and there's one in Luke. So I'm going to check. I could just Google it, but y'all, it's better to just do it the old-fashioned way. We're just gonna do it the old-fashioned way. At least I think it's in Luke. Yes, it is. Jesus himself. Okay, so some Joseph. We're gonna do this backwards because it is better. Son of. I'm pretty sure I'm right, guys. This is. Actually, I know I'm right, but I want to be able to give you guys a reference. Okay, it has to be in Matthew. It has to be in Matthew because it's not in Luke. The reason why there are two genealogies is one is for Joseph's family and one is for Mary's family. Okay, Salmon begat Boaz, Abraham, Rahab. Okay. So Matthew chapter 1, I believe that was verse 5, it says Rahab, and it gives a reference to Joshua. Do you want to read Joshua? And there's only one Rahab in Joshua. Sometimes names are repeated. There's more. Yep. Joshua spared Rahab and the harlot, her father's household, and all that she had. So, I was right. Rahab was a part of the genealogy of Christ. You can find that in Matthew chapter 1. Anyway, so this pagan woman believes, had heard about God, decided that she believed in him, and was able to work out her faith and prove that she had faith in God by this action. So that was my last point, my last takeaway, was that the ways in which Rahab and Abraham responded to their situations proved their faith in God. And so when you look at stories like Abraham and Rahab, who are put into these impossible situations where they have to make a really big decision, it just goes to show that there are going to be times in our lives, and we've all experienced something, right, where we've had to make really tough decisions, and maybe they even sound counterintuitive, like the way Abraham, I'm going to assume, struggled, right? As his promised son. God, really? But you promised, right? So totally counterintuitive. He was still willing to have faith and trust that God knew what he was doing. So I just lost my train of thought. I'm so sorry. It's early. This is why I decided to do live, because this is good practice for me. But anyway, sometimes God may ask you to do something that doesn't sound quite right or feel quite right. And I don't know how to verbalize this well, but I do want to just put this out there and say, just because you might feel like God's talking to you, like, this is why we have to have a relationship with God. Because there's also a devil who likes to pop into our conscience, right, and try to tell us stuff. If it doesn't match up or align with the word, don't listen. This is why it's good to practice your faith in community, so that not only can you go to the word and not only can you pray, but you can also bounce things off of another believer and say, hey, I've been praying about this, and what do you think? And not just any person, but somebody who really, really walks in the truth. And so try, do surround yourself with people who can walk in faith with you, and who you can talk to about difficult things. So I just want to throw that out there and say, just because you have an idea or something comes to mind, it doesn't always mean it's the Lord. But just because something sounds strange doesn't mean that it's not the Lord. So that's why we always have to be in constant communication with him. And the Holy Spirit will talk to us, and we have to learn how to listen. Good morning. Somebody just said good morning. So yeah, that is the last half of the second chapter of James. So I'm going to post this video and hopefully get, streaming for today, because it was easier than recording video. because my perfectionist self, when I'm recording actual video, my perfectionist self behaves differently than when I'm live. So I have a busy day today, and it was just an easier option. So anyway, I'm gonna get this video posted. It takes a while for it to upload and post to the channel, but I'm gonna get that done. And then whenever you're ready, there'll be a blog post waiting for you if you want to share your 5 takeaways in the comment section of the blog post. You can do that. I want to know what you're taking away from this portion of scripture. I'm going to wait just a couple of seconds to see if anybody has any questions. There are a few of you joining me. So if you have any questions or comments, it doesn't have to be Club 119 related. I'll go ahead and answer them now. For anybody who's watching this afterwards, I'm just going to call this section done. Please comment below if you want to say anything, share anything. For those of you who are in the Facebook group, I invite you to ask any questions there if you have any. I know that people are taking their time in the study, and I don't want to rush you at all. In fact, I would rather you take the time in the study than feel rushed to get it done at a certain time. The weekly schedule is more for me so that I can keep on a regular filming schedule so I can get these videos out for you guys. But you can just take your time. Even if it takes you the rest of the year to finish it, I do not mind. Do what you have to do. Savor the word. Take time in the word. Enjoy the word. If anybody has any questions or comments, I'm going to take a sip of my drink here. My nose is a little stuffy. I'm sorry. I'm like sniffing. And it's morning. I hope you guys are having a great morning this morning. It's Friday. It is Friday. It is Friday. And I'm ready for the weekend. Also, I always have to say that if this is your first, sorry. Woo. Oh, this is my alarm. This is the time I normally wake up. We're gonna dismiss it because I'm obviously awake. If this is your first Club 119 video, you have no idea what's going on. If you haven't signed up, then I invite you to go ahead and sign up. There's a link in the description where you can sign up and get the information for this series. You'll get a link if you want to join the Facebook group, and you can go ahead and do that. There are over 400 of you guys. There are over 460 of you guys actually in the Facebook group. I want to look at, okay, here we go. How do I go through your chats, guys, or your comments? You're loving James and you're all caught up now. Awesome, awesome. Oh, okay, hold on. All chat. It's not working, guys. I'm sorry. I don't know how to go back. Anyway. Yeah, okay. Nobody else is commenting. I'm going to leave it at that. I'm going to have to figure out how to use this on my iPad. Technical difficulties here, you guys. I'm such a newbie at this. All right. Okay, if nobody else has any comments, I'm going to go ahead and sign off so I can get ready for my day. Y'all, I've got my hat on. When I have a hat on, that normally means, that doesn't normally mean that I'm trying to be fashionable or cute or whatever. It just means that I haven't done my hair. So, I've got the hat on. Anyway, I hope you guys have a great rest of your Friday. And I will see, and have a great week. I'm going through the 4th week of James, and if you guys have any questions or comments, you guys know you can reach me in the comments here on YouTube. You can reach me in the Facebook group, and you can reach me on Instagram. You can also email me if you so choose. So I would love to hear from you if you have anything to say. I will talk to you guys later. Have a great rest of the day, and I'm going to figure out how to end this live.